I am Rachel, 29 years old, and I thought the hardest part was already behind me. I had spent 6 months of my life, and every dollar I had saved gutting and rebuilding my grandmother's old house in Savannah, Georgia, transforming it into a boutique Airbnb. But when I pulled up to the property on opening day with my very first guests waiting in the car behind me, my brother Ryan and his new wife Megan were sitting on the freshly painted porch, drinking sweet tea out of my grandmother's china. "Oh hey, Rach," Ryan said, not even bothering to stand up. "Mom told us we could move in since you weren't using the place. Pretty sweet setup you've got here." My hands went numb on the steering wheel. If you're listening right now, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Because this story of family entitlement and the moment I finally stopped being the pushover is one you will not want to miss. Let me take you back a bit so you understand how I ended up here. I grew up in a small town outside of Savannah, the oldest of 2 kids. My parents split when I was 11, and my dad relocated to Texas for work. That left my mom, Linda, to raise me and my younger brother Ryan on her own. She did her best, but somewhere along the way she developed this unshakable belief that Ryan needed more protection than I did. He was the baby, he was sensitive, he needed extra support. What that translated to in practice was that Ryan got away with everything. When he crashed my bike in 8th grade, my mom told me I should have let him borrow it more often so he would have been better at riding. When he lost my graphing calculator the week before my SATs, she said I was overreacting. When he drained the emergency gas money from the kitchen jar to buy concert tickets, she replaced it out of her own wallet and told me not to bring it up because it would embarrass him. Meanwhile, I was working at the ice cream shop on Main Street from age 15, saving every tip in a shoebox under my bed. I put myself through college with scholarships and part-time work, graduated with a degree in interior design, and built a small but steady freelance business doing home staging and renovation consulting. Nobody handed me anything. I earned it all. Ryan, on the other hand, coasted. He dropped out of community college after 1 semester, bounced between jobs, and always had an excuse for why nothing was his fault. My mom funded his car payments, his phone bill, and more than a few rent checks. Whenever I pointed out the double standard, she hit me with the same line every time. "Rachel, you're the strong one. Ryan just needs a little more help getting on his feet." He was 26. He had been getting on his feet for a decade. The one person in my family who ever truly saw me was my grandmother, Nana May. She was my mom's mother, a retired school teacher who lived in a beautiful but aging Victorian house on a quiet street lined with live oaks. I spent every summer there growing up, helping her tend her garden and listening to her stories about Savannah's history. She taught me to sew curtains, to strip wallpaper, to see the beauty in old things that other people wanted to tear down. She's the reason I became a designer. When Nana May passed away 2 years ago, she left the house to me, not to my mom, not split between me and Ryan, to me alone, with a handwritten note tucked into the will that said, "Rachel, you're the only one who ever loved this house the way I did. Make it shine again." My mom was furious. She argued that the house should be shared equally, that it was not fair, that Nana May must not have been thinking clearly. But the will was airtight. Nana May had updated it just 6 months before she passed, with a lawyer present and witnesses. The house was mine. For about a year, I couldn't bring myself to do anything with it. I was grieving, and the house sat empty, slowly collecting dust. But eventually an idea took shape. I would honor Nana May's memory by restoring the house to its former glory and turning it into a boutique Airbnb, the kind of place where guests could experience the charm of old Savannah. I would pour my design skills into every room, and the income would give me the financial freedom to be more selective with my freelance clients. I emptied my savings. I took out a small renovation loan. For 6 months, I was at that house almost every day, stripping floors, rewiring outlets, choosing paint colors, sourcing vintage furniture from estate sales. I did as much of the work myself as I could and hired local contractors for the rest. Every decision was intentional. The clawfoot tub I found at a salvage yard, the hand-painted tiles I commissioned from a local artist for the kitchen backsplash, the reading nook I built into the upstairs window seat because Nana May always said that was her favorite spot in the house. By the time I was done, the place was stunning. I listed it on Airbnb with professional photos and a write-up that told the story of the house and its history. Within 48 hours, I had my first booking. A couple from Boston named Daniel and Priya, visiting Savannah for their anniversary. They were arriving on a Saturday afternoon, and I had planned everything down to the fresh flowers on the dining table and the handwritten welcome card on the kitchen counter. I had not told my mom or Ryan many details about the renovation. I learned long ago that giving them too much information invited interference. My mom knew I was fixing up the house, but I kept the Airbnb plans vague. I told her I was figuring out what to do with the property and left it at that. The Friday before my first guests were set to arrive, my mom called me. She was unusually chatty, asking about my work, my apartment, the house. "So what's happening with Nana Mae's place?" she asked, a little too casually. "Are you going to move in eventually?" "Still working on it," I said. "I'll fill you in soon." I should have recognized that tone. I should have heard the setup, but I was too excited about opening day to read between the lines. Saturday morning arrived, and I woke up buzzing with energy. I loaded my car with the last of the supplies, the welcome basket, extra linens, a bottle of local wine, and drove to the house to do a final check before Daniel and Priya arrived at 3. I had arranged to meet them at the property so I could give them a personal tour and hand over the keys. When I turned onto Nana Mae's street at noon, something was wrong. There was a pickup truck in the driveway, Ryan's pickup truck, and the front door was wide open. I parked on the street, my heart hammering, and walked up the porch steps. That's when I saw them. Ryan sprawled in one of the rocking chairs I had refinished by hand. Megan perched on the porch railing, scrolling through her phone. Through the open door, I could see boxes stacked in the hallway and a pile of shoes kicked off by the entrance. "What are you doing here?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Ryan grinned like I had just stopped by for a visit. "Mom gave us her key. She said you weren't living here and the house was just sitting empty, so we figured we'd move in for a while. Save some money. Megan and I are trying to build up our savings, you know?" Megan looked up from her phone and gave me a small wave. "Hey, Rachel. The house looks amazing, by the way. You did such a great job with the renovation." I stood there staring at the boxes in the hallway, at Ryan's muddy boots on the hardwood floors I had spent 3 weekends refinishing, at Megan's jacket draped over the banister I had sanded and stained by hand. Something cold and sharp settled in my chest. "You need to leave," I said. "Right now." Ryan's grin faded. "What? Come on, Rach, don't be dramatic. Mom said it was cool. Mom doesn't own this house. I do, and I have paying guests arriving in 3 hours. You need to pack your things and go." "Guests?" Megan's eyebrows shot up. "What do you mean, guests?" I turned the house into an Airbnb. My first booking checks in today. I have a couple who have paid in full and are driving here from Boston right now. This is a business, and you are trespassing in it. Ryan leaned forward in the rocking chair, his expression shifting from confusion to defiance. "Well, nobody told us that. Mom said the house was empty and we could use it. Maybe you should take that up with her instead of yelling at us." I was already pulling out my phone. I did not call my mother. I called 911. "Hi, I'd like to report unauthorized individuals in my property," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm the legal owner. They entered using a key that was given without my authorization. I've asked them to leave and they're refusing." Ryan shot up from the chair. "Are you serious right now? You're calling the cops on your own brother? You have about 20 minutes to pack your things before they get here," I replied. "Your choice." The dispatcher confirmed a unit was on the way. I hung up and immediately called my friend Janelle, who happens to be a real estate attorney. I had helped stage her office last year and she had told me to call anytime I needed legal advice. "Janelle, quick question. My brother moved into my Airbnb property without permission using a key my mom gave him. I have guests checking in today. What are my rights?" 100% yours, Janelle said without hesitation. "You're the deed holder. Your mom has no authority to grant anyone occupancy. Your brother is trespassing. If he refuses to leave, the police can remove him. And if your guests can't check in as scheduled, you could be liable for their expenses and damages, plus a terrible review that tanks your listing before it even gets off the ground." That last part hit hard. I had invested everything in this property. One bad review on opening day could destroy my Airbnb business before it started. I thanked Janelle and went back to the porch. Ryan was on the phone, pacing. I could hear my mother's voice through the speaker. "Rachel, what is going on?" my mom demanded when Ryan held the phone toward me. "Ryan says you're threatening to call the police." "I already called them. They're on the way." "Have you lost your mind? He's your brother." "He's a trespasser in my property, Mom. A property you had no right to offer to anyone. I have guests arriving in less than 3 hours and my brother's muddy boots are on my freshly finished floors." It's your grandmother's house, my mom said, as though that somehow made it communal property. It should be available to the whole family. It's my house. Nana May left it to me. My name is on the deed. I spent 6 months and my entire savings renovating it, and I have a legally binding agreement with guests who are arriving today. None of that changes because you decided Ryan deserved a free place to live. You've always been selfish, Rachel. Always thinking about yourself. Ryan and Megan just got married. They need help getting started. Would it kill you to support your own family? I felt the old guilt try to creep in. The lifelong conditioning that told me I was the difficult one, the cold one, the one who needed to bend. But I looked at my grandmother's house. At the porch I had rebuilt plank by plank, and I let the guilt pass right through me. If you want to help them, let them move into your guest room. But this house is mine and it's not up for discussion. I'm hanging up now. I ended the call. Ryan was staring at me with a mix of anger and something I had never seen from him before, uncertainty. Megan had stopped scrolling and was watching us both with wide eyes. Ryan, Megan said quietly, maybe we should just go. Go where? He snapped. We broke our lease early because Mom said this place was available. We don't have anywhere else. That's something you need to work out, I said. But not here. And not at my expense. A police cruiser pulled up to the curb. 2 officers stepped out, and the shift in energy was immediate. Ryan's defiance deflated. Megan started gathering her purse and keys. I met the officers on the walkway and explained the situation calmly. I showed them the deed on my phone, my Airbnb listing, and the confirmation from Daniel and Priya's booking. One of the officers went to speak with Ryan while the other stayed with me. Ma'am, your brother says your mother gave him permission to stay here, the officer said. My mother doesn't own this property. She had a spare key for emergencies. She used it to let my brother move in without my knowledge or consent. The officer nodded. Understood. We'll inform him that he needs to vacate. If he refuses, we can proceed with a trespass removal. Ryan did not refuse. With the officers standing there, the bravado drained right out of him. He and Megan started carrying boxes back to the truck in silence. I watched from the porch, arms crossed, feeling every emotion at once. Anger, relief, sadness, and underneath it all, a fierce protectiveness over what I had built. My mother called 3 more times while they were loading the truck. I let every call go to voicemail. I could not afford to get pulled into another emotional negotiation. I had guests arriving and a house to prepare. It took them about 45 minutes to clear out. When the last box was loaded, Ryan walked up to me, his jaw tight. I can't believe you did this, he said. Over a house. It's not just a house, Ryan. It's my business, my investment, and my grandmother's legacy. You don't get to take that from me because Mom said so. He shook his head and walked to the truck without another word. Megan lingered for a moment. She looked uncomfortable, almost embarrassed. I'm sorry, Rachel, she said, and she sounded like she meant it. I didn't know you had guests coming. Ryan told me your mom had arranged everything. I should have asked you directly. You should have, I agreed. But I appreciate you saying that. She nodded and got in the truck. They pulled out of the driveway, and I stood there alone in front of my grandmother's house, shaking slightly from the adrenaline but standing upright. I had 90 minutes before Daniel and Priya arrived. I went inside and assessed the damage. Thankfully, they had only been there overnight. The guest bedroom sheets needed changing. There were dishes in the sink, and Ryan had scratched the hardwood in the hallway, dragging in a heavy box. I photographed the scratch for my records, then spent the next hour cleaning, remaking beds, arranging flowers, and erasing every trace of my brother's occupation. By 2:45, the house looked exactly as I had envisioned it. Warm, inviting, full of character and history. I set the welcome basket on the kitchen island, lit a candle that smelled like magnolia, and took a deep breath. Daniel and Priya arrived right on time. They pulled up in a rental car, looking excited and slightly road-weary from the long drive. I greeted them on the porch with a genuine smile. Welcome to Savannah, I said, and welcome to May's house. Oh my gosh, Priya said as she stepped inside. This is even more beautiful than the photos. Look at these floors, Daniel. I walked them through the house, pointing out the original crown molding, the clawfoot tub, the reading nook by the window. I told them about my grandmother and how she had lived here for 40 years, about the renovation process and the local artisans who had contributed to the restoration. They were charmed, and I could tell they felt the love that had gone into every detail. This is exactly what we were hoping for, Daniel said as I handed them the keys. We wanted something with soul, not just another generic rental. After they were settled, I sat in my car for a few minutes, letting the tension of the day finally release. My phone was full of missed calls and texts, 3 voicemails from my mom, each more indignant than the last. A text from Ryan that just said, "Thanks for nothing," and one message from Megan, "Rachel, I want you to know that I told Ryan we should have called you first. He didn't listen. I'm sorry we put you in that position. For what it's worth, the house really is beautiful. Your grandmother would be proud." That last line made my eyes sting. I typed back a simple, "Thank you, Megan. I appreciate that." I drove back to my apartment and collapsed on the couch, emotionally wrung out. My roommate Zara, who had been following the drama through my frantic texts all afternoon, handed me a glass of wine without a word. "So," she said after a minute, "how does it feel to finally tell them no?" "Terrifying," I admitted, "and incredible." My phone buzzed. A voicemail from my mom. I put it on speaker. "Rachel, I am very disappointed in you. Calling the police on your own brother? Your grandmother would be ashamed. Ryan and Megan are staying at a motel now because of you. I hope you're happy." Zara raised an eyebrow. "She really said your grandmother would be ashamed? The grandmother who specifically left the house to you and not to anyone else?" "That's my mom," I said. "She rewrites history like it's a hobby." I did not call her back that night. I needed space to process, and I knew that engaging while emotions were this high would only lead to another circular argument where she painted herself as the victim and me as the villain. The next morning I woke up to a 5-star review from Daniel and Priya. "May's house is a gem. Every detail has been thoughtfully curated and the history of the home adds a warmth that you can't manufacture. Rachel was a wonderful host. We're already talking about coming back next year." I read it 3 times, each time feeling a little more validated. This was real. The business I had poured myself into was working. Over the next few days, 2 more bookings came in. The listing was gaining traction. Guests were responding to the story of the house and the quality of the restoration. On Wednesday, my mother called again. I answered this time, bracing myself. "Rachel, we need to talk about what happened," she said. Her tone was different, less angry, more subdued. "I agree, but I need you to understand something first. That house is mine. Nana May left it to me because she trusted me with it. I built a business around it. What you did by giving Ryan a key and telling him to move in without asking me was a violation of my property and my trust." "I was just trying to help him," she said. "He and Megan were struggling with rent, and I thought since the house was sitting there." "It wasn't sitting there. It was generating income that I depend on. But even if it were sitting empty, it's still my property. You wouldn't give a stranger the key to my apartment. Why is it okay to give it to Ryan?" There was a long silence. When she finally spoke, her voice was smaller than I had ever heard it. "I didn't think of it that way." "You never do, Mom. When it comes to Ryan, you never think about how it affects me. You just assume I'll handle it, that I'll be fine, that I'll make room. That's because you've always been so capable, Rachel. You never seem to need. Everyone needs their family to respect their boundaries, Mom. Even the capable ones. Especially the capable ones. Because people take advantage of that capability." I heard her take a shaky breath. "I'm starting to see that. Your father called me yesterday. He said some things that were hard to hear, but he was right. I have been treating you too differently. I've been so focused on propping Ryan up that I forgot you needed support too. Just a different kind. I had not expected that. My father and I talked occasionally, but he rarely got involved in family conflicts. The fact that he had called my mom meant he had heard what happened and felt strongly enough to say something. I appreciate you telling me that, I said carefully. But words are just words, Mom. I need to see change. I know. I'm trying. We talked for a few more minutes, not resolving everything but opening a door that had been sealed for years. It was awkward and imperfect and real. On Friday, I got an unexpected email from Megan. Hi, Rachel. I want to be honest with you about something. Ryan and I have been having some tough conversations since Saturday. What happened at your grandmother's house forced us to look at patterns that I had been ignoring. Ryan has a habit of expecting other people to solve his problems, and I've been going along with it because it was easier than fighting about it. We've decided to start couples counseling. I don't know if that matters to you, but I thought you should know that what you did, standing your ground like that, it made both of us think. I hope we can have a better relationship going forward. Also, we found a month-to-month apartment near Megan's job. We're okay. I read the email twice. Then I sat back in my chair and let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding. Something about knowing that the confrontation had rippled outward, that it had made Ryan and Megan examine their own dynamic, made the pain of that Saturday feel worth it. I replied to Megan with a short, warm message. I told her I was glad they were doing well, that I supported their decision to try counseling, and that I hoped we could move forward too. I meant every word. Ryan himself did not reach out, and I did not expect him to. He was never quick to admit fault, but the fact that Megan was communicating was a good sign. Sometimes change starts at the edges and works its way in. The following weekend, I went back to the house between guest stays to do a deep clean and restock supplies. As I was arranging fresh towels in the bathroom, I found myself standing in the doorway of the reading nook, looking at the window seat where I used to sit with Nana May while she read me stories. I had built this space to honor her memory, and in the process, I had discovered something about myself. I was not just the capable one, the independent one, the one who didn't need anything. I was also someone who deserved to have her work respected, her boundaries honored, and her achievements celebrated rather than redistributed to someone who had not earned them. My phone buzzed. A new review from my most recent guests. Absolutely magical. You can feel the love and history in every corner of this home. 5 stars is not enough. I smiled and closed the app. The house was booked solid for the next 2 months. My freelance business was thriving alongside it. And for the first time in my life, my family was beginning to see me not just as the one who could handle anything, but as someone whose boundaries mattered. It would not be a straight line. My mom would slip back into old patterns. Ryan would probably sulk for months before coming around, if he came around at all. But I had drawn a line and I had held it. That was the part that changed everything. Not the confrontation itself, but the discovery that I could stand in the middle of the storm and not bend. If you have ever had a family member try to claim something you built with your own hands, I would love to hear your story in the comments. How did you handle it? Did things get better or worse afterward? Hit that like button if this resonated with you, and subscribe to Solid Revenge if you want more stories about people who refuse to be taken advantage of. Thanks for listening, and remember, protecting what's yours isn't selfish, it's survival.